Hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's stream. And it's Tuesday. We're working on some Noah's Archipelago stuff. Why don't I just go right there? There's my current live streaming schedule. I'm going to have to make a new one on the weekend because next week we're going to start streaming a little later at 7 p.m. So we are working on some cast portraits for the Noah's Archipelago treasury. We've done a couple of these over some recent Tuesday streams. Like this is Noah's eldest son's girlfriend, Stacy. But we've got a few more to finish for this book project. So we are going to just get at it. And the first two we're going to start with tonight are Agnes and Frank. Those are Noah's in-laws, his wife's parents. So we'll start with them and we'll see where we get to. Still have to do portraits of Noah himself and his wife Ruth, but those are going to be bigger, kind of full page kind of portraits. So I figure we might do those two last. So Agnes kind of has, I realize I have a few characters who have a very similar hairdo. In the Zommel the Destroyer, there's a variation of this hairdo on Mrs. Churchman, although Mrs. Churchman's kind of ends up looking a little more mushroom-like. Noah's daughter Ursula's teacher, Miss Fardamar, has a version of this kind of short bob as well. But anyways, so Agnes is a little bit, shall we say, stuck up. In fact, I think I had, it won't be in the first Noah's Archipelago treasury that this is going in, but I believe it was like a week after where I'm putting the cutoff for this book. And so it'll be in the second book where Agnes talks about her sister having had a parrot when they were kids, and the parrot used to bully Agnes, chase Agnes around, screeching, "Agnes stuck up, Agnes stuck up," which obviously the bird had learned that from one of Agnes's sisters. But anyways, that's kind of when Noah starts thinking maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea to allow Ursula to get a parrot, except, well, wiser heads prevail. Basically because Noah doesn't want to be the one having to care for this parrot. All right. Just kind of put in a few random strands here. Agnes's hair is white, but she does have some blonde streaks in it. So give her a little bit of coloring here. I'm working with India ink in the dip pen, so it kind of gives sometimes the pen has its own ideas. Anyways, I just realized for the next couple weeks until I finish off these cast portraits, we're going to have kind of 5 nights a week of black and white work, but it is what it is, right? I've kind of gravitated more and more towards pen and ink work over the last little while. I was doing Noah's Archipelago digitally, so then it was full color, but I don't know, the ergonomics of working on an iPad were starting to really bother my neck and whatnot. I've done some stuff, obviously, up to last week, where it's markers. So, for example, the Noah's Archipelago Book of Days project will be in full color, and it's going to be illustrated with markers, but mostly we're working black and white now. I'm going to just kind of give Agnes, thicken up these lashes so they kind of match. But Agnes doesn't really wear much makeup, or I should say she doesn't obviously wear a lot of makeup. There are some women who wear a ton of makeup, but it's all, the natural look, but it takes them an hour to put on their face. Agnes maybe is kind of in that category. We don't know. But we're going to leave this as a fairly simple line drawing, I think. Let me think about that. Nah, I think I will leave it kind of there. Agnes's main hobbies tend to be sort of being a busybody, so kind of fits that. Actually, I just had an idea of what we're going to do. So I was going to say, the other characters all kind of have at least something in the background. But Agnes, what she likes to do is look out the window and keep tabs on what Noah's up to. So we can accommodate that. A bit of a smudge there, but that's okay. That's what I get for, ignoring my rule about always left to right and top to bottom. But kind of do that, and I'm going to put my fist down here. Kind of, it's not obvious, but I'm going to do this to prop my wrist up so I don't drag over what I've just drawn. But let's put some family photos on the walls. Make this kind of be like an old-timey photo, some ancestor from the 1800s. Just know this dude from the 1800s next to this wife is saying the same thing Frank says all the time. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Right away, dear. So depending how many we get done each stream, I figure the Noah portrait and the Ruth portrait are probably going to take about an hour each, so I can do those two in my final cast portrait stream. We've got Agnes, who obviously we're going to be done with probably in about 10 minutes. And then we've got her husband, Frank. And then we've got Noah's mother, Hrefna, and his younger son, Duke. And then we have his first wife, his eldest son, Adam's mother, and whose name is Gigi, or Jillian. And then Jillian's dude, Glenn, who is a former bandmate of Noah, and somebody who they've known each other since junior high. So Anyways, I'm going to draw Noah doing. So anyways, that means if we can get 3 portraits done today, and then we get 3 done next week, then we have Noah and Ruth the week after, you know. We will soon be, basically then I just have to do a little bit of write-up on each of these cast members, and then I can get the first Noah's Archipelago, I always used to call it an anthology, but properly called a comic collection or a treasury. Can get that book ready, and then I just have to, you know, hurry up and wait for Library and Archives Canada to approve my ISBN account so I can, anyways, that's heard from a few other people, friends of friends in the writers group that I used to attend before I started streaming during the meeting times. One of their newer members is also waiting for ISBN stuff, and I've heard on Reddit some people saying that there's like a 3, maybe even 4-month delay. So it is what it is. I'll just try and get the book done, so all I have to do when I do get that approval is just apply for my ISBN number, slot it in when it comes, and then it's be pretty straightforward to edit and upload. So we've got a little bush here, and then I'm thinking or a tree or something. So Agnes and Frank have relatively large property in one of the Shishi areas of Victoria, BC, Oak Bay, and Noah and Ruth and the kids live in the guest house on this property. So, and then there's a pool in the mutual yard. So Agnes kind of watches what Noah's up to during the day. And he likes hanging out in the pool. But he also likes giving Agnes things to obsess over and watch and whatnot, especially if her friends are around. So we are going to bear that in mind. Part of me thinks actually I should use a thinner pen. So I've got my crow quill. This one sometimes likes to not draw, but we will see what we get. We've got Noah juggling, but that isn't enough attention seeking for him. Probably I'll fix his foot. He's got his little pedal here. going to be very small, smudgy detail, especially when this is shrunk down in the context of the book. Although, I don't know, it may actually be pretty close to that size. I think the book dimensions are going to be like 7.5 by 9.25, something like that. So, that's going to shrink somewhat, but probably will end up going the entire width of the page. Do some kind of scribbles to give the sense of arborvitaes or kind of tall, thin kind of trees in the background. Is kind of based on a cartoon. I don't think it's actually in the first book that this is going to go into. So it'll actually be kind of like a, I guess, kind of like a preview of a future book. But there was a little comic. I want to say, I can't remember if it was 2024 or 2023, but one of the Julys had a little storyline where Agnes and her friend were hanging out in the living room, and Noah's showing off and doing stupid things like riding his unicycle around the pool. And the friend is kind of talking about, oh, that's your son-in-law. Yeah, now he's juggling, And Agnes is like, stop watching him. He thrives on attention. So kind of, I'll give him some little zoomy kind of lines. And now, I'm going to try this with the glass pen. Sometimes this guy draws great, sometimes not so much, but we are going to see what it does today, because I've often used this one for putting in like grass texture and stuff like this. I think I'll also use the crow quill. It's going to give Noah some thicker outlines. The fact that the grass will apparently be uneven with these different thicknesses, well, that just means there's more reason for Agnes to be annoyed, because Noah's the one who's supposed to be keeping up the lawn as part of, living there. Whereas Noah's idea of keeping up the lawn is, weed whack it. But he has commandeered some of the lawn to put in like garden beds and stuff like that. Now, he has done that with the full blessing of Agnes's husband, Frank, although Frank always pretends like he didn't give the blessing. Frank apparently wanted to sell this place and retire to a farm, because he's a prairie farm boy originally. But Agnes will not hear of that, so the way Frank copes with that is that he encourages Noah to do things like dig up parts of the lawn and put in raised beds and They now have a chicken coop, and they have a little orchard, mini orchard with a few trees by the chicken coop and that sort of thing. And Agnes likes to complain about how she used to have a beautiful lawn, and then her son-in-law, her daughter's husband, ruined it with his stupid chickens and vegetables. So, anyways, there's a little bit of background, a little bit of lore. I found with these crow quills that once you kind of get the hang of them, they work pretty well. It did take quite a long time for me to get the hang of them. I do think I've probably made the, I should have used this pen for like the waves on the pool, but I think when I take a medium weight pen and kind of go over some edges, I'll probably balance that out. And of course, I always got to put a couple fluffy clouds in the sky. All right, so the medium one. I think what I will first do is in some thicker lines here and around Agnes. Agnes's signature top is kind of a turtleneck. She would have some that were lighter weight, so that's why you still see her wearing them even in summer. Although if it gets brutally hot. I have definitely drawn Agnes in other outfits, but there's something just very Agnes about wearing a turtleneck. You see that already kind of, maybe what I'll do is I will switch for a second to document camera only. So we have a little bit bigger view, but even just kind of thickening up the edges of the pool, it makes the water line look that much, or the water kind of squiggles make that look that much thinner by comparison. So, give Noah a big shadow here. And we will draw across underneath the window framing. So there we have Agnes glaring. So that's one drawing done. So Noah's mother-in-law. Let's now go to his father-in-law. I'll switch back to, actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to leave it on the, I'm debating whether I would go and leave it on document camera only, but I think it's nice to have the background, with Noah down there and the title and all that. So, now Frank. Frank is a retired politician, formerly a lawyer. And Frank's great pleasure in life, well, the chickens, but he pretends that that's not the case if Agnes is around, and clearly she is. But aside from that, he likes to sit and read his newspaper. He also likes golf. Typical retired dude kind of hobbies. What's not going to show in this, because it's black and white, is Frank has a tendency to ignore Agnes's nags about putting on sunscreen. So when I do the comic, he's always like kind of lobster red. But he likes to sit and read his paper and try and be left in peace, which pretty much never happens. And give a little tone, although it ends up making, I might Photoshop that out, because it kind of makes it look like he has hair on his head, and he really doesn't, other than, around, he's got like the back of his head and around the ears kind of thing going on. I think Agnes used to hope that she could nag Frank into becoming prime minister, but that didn't work, so now she's working on nagging her son Norm into entering politics. Norm is a criminal defense attorney, and so far has not succumbed to the nagging about politics. She's already starting work on one of Norm's kids, Kyle. Kyle is definitely going to become prime minister one day, whether he wants to or not, because, you know, his grandmother will do her utmost. Before I get much further, because I don't want to smudge it, I'm going to put in a bunch of kind of lines to give the sense of folds in the sweater or wrinkles. Yeah, Frank's basically, his whole thing is figuring out ways to avoid doing what Agnes wants him to do. Like even there was one little storyline a while back in one January with the webcomic where Noah is all miserable because Ruth is on a diet in the new year, and Noah is kind of stuck doing the diet with her. And at some point, Ursula wants to avoid the whole salad thing, so she keeps popping over across the yard to Frank and Agnes's for dinner, and explains to Agnes that Mommy and Daddy are still on a diet, and they're both miserable, and Frank kind of laughs and says, Thorsen hasn't figured out he can just cheat on the diet, huh? And Agnes is like, what? Are you saying would you cheat on the diet? He's like, no, dear, I love wheatgrass. And then he asks Ursula if she would like to go visit her Uncle Norm's and see the horsies. And he has a thought bubble and said, and we're going to stop for burgers on the way there. So, but he will never stand up to Agnes and tell her no. He just kind of does his own thing when she's not looking. But hey, that's why Frank is relatively content. It's like, just say yes, dear, and then do the exact opposite when she leaves the room. I think on Frank, I will leave the background blank though, so I can kind of cut him out of here. There are some where like with Agnes, where I've done the full background or whatnot, but then there's others where I just kind of did a couple things and then left it blank. Now we are going to grab the crow quill in order to put some wood grain on this table, and then we'll add some shadows on top of that. And then we will be moving on to another illustration. Probably highly unrealistic wood grain on this table, but hey, it's the cartoon universe. Maybe their trees are made a little different. Hey, Luna! Just saw your message now. Welcome to the stream. Changed your account name and picture. Hey, go for it. They let you do that, every couple weeks, right? I've had a couple other people who, changed their name during the Stanley Cup playoffs and then changed it a couple times afterwards and whatnot. So I say go for it. Today we are doing some cast portraits for characters in my Noah's Archipelago webcomic. Well, formerly a webcomic. Now I'm going to be moving it into book projects instead. But I'm working on the first book, comic treasury of things, I thought it would probably be good to, you know, have some images of who these people are with a little write-ups. So I'm doing that right now. So this is Noah's father-in-law, Frank. And we already drew his mother-in-law, Agnes. And we are about to now draw his second son. Actually, you know what? Why don't we go straight for Noah's mother, since we're doing the in-laws and that generation. So I am doing pretty well, Luna. Hope you're doing good as well. Chugging along on this project. It's funny, when I was doing some similarly sized drawings last night, 3 basically filled the entire stream, and now I'm on to the third one in 45 minutes. So all depends on the night. Some days it goes real fast, and some days it's real slow. So Hrefna here, or that we'll start seeing. That's Noah's eldest son, Adam, by the way. Did that portrait a couple weeks back on one of the Tuesday streams. So Hrefna, originally from Greenland. She's a Dane, but the story goes her father worked in mining. So, and there was a lot of mining around the World War II era in Greenland. So she's originally from Greenland, and then her father got a job in Manitoba in Canada. I think I had determined at some point that Noah grew up in a town called Flin Flon, which basically I chose that because the name is fun to say. But it's a town of about, I think, like 5,000 people, maybe. Very small. But there's a mine there. And so that's where Noah's from. It's on the border between Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And so the story goes that Noah's parents met there because his dad is also a Danish expat working at the mine, met Hrefna. And she's a lot like Agnes in the sense that she's a nag. Her husband Olaf, in the story, passed away some 15 years before, and then Hrefna moved to Florida, where she could finally be warm. Although first she had hassled Olaf into retiring in BC, or getting a job somewhere in BC. Victoria's kind of the warmest place in, well, not warmest in the summer, but in terms of like crappy winter weather, Victoria's like the least worst in Canada. It's kind of like Canada's San Diego, I guess. But she still felt that it was too cold here in BC, so after Olaf passed away, she headed down south to Florida, where she can go around with her boobs showing. It's like little halter tops and booty shorts. So it would seem that that's where Noah gets it from when he's going around with his shirt unbuttoned and all that sort of stuff. And there are alligators in Hrefna's pool all the time. And she just, what we're going to see shortly as I work to the right, is she just like thwacks them with a broom if they get unruly. There's some allegations that she also poaches gators, but I guess that's canon because it was part of one of the comic plot lines a couple years ago where Noah finds this out about his mother. He's concerned about her having pet gators in her swimming pool, and everyone's telling her they're not actually pets. Trying to see what I've got in the background. Oh, there is a pool. So, actually, I think I'll draw her first, and then I'll flip the thing upside down and do the background. Anyways, it turns out that everybody in the family except for Noah knew about the gator situation, which has them all paranoid about people keeping secrets. And then and at one point he tells Ursula they need to talk, and she's all concerned that she's getting in trouble over something she did at school. And they're talking past each other, and at some points he's saying, even when people do wrong, that doesn't mean we don't love them, but we can't condone the wrong behavior. And she's like trying to figure out what he's up to, and then he says, even if it's my mother. And then she's like, wait, what? Forget what I said about school. In fact, actually, when I pull this over, actually, when I was taking some pottery stuff, we were making like cups and stuff like this, hand built. So I had actually done this cup of Hrefna, kind of a very similar drawing. But there she is with her broom, shaking her fist, going, shoo, bad gator. When you wrap it around, the gator is about to bite her in the ass. So it's kind of a motif. Yeah, actually, keep tilting it the wrong way for the camera, but so I think when did I make this? In 2024. So kind of a similar idea. So this is one of my many pen containers off on the side of my desk. I also I think I've got like 2 different Noah pen cups that I did. I've got a Miles one, a Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat one. Did I make an Ursula one? I don't remember if I actually made an Ursula one. But I do have a head of, like a bust of Ursula that I did that's like a little sculpture. So anyways, point is we are kind of doing something a little bit similar because that's kind of part of Hrefna's story. Also in the lore, she has apparently killed a polar bear with her bare hands and a knife. Well, I guess she used a knife, so she didn't actually do. And thank you, Luna. Glad you like it. Actually, one of the things we are going to be doing the next Tuesday night project, once I finish this these cast portraits in the next couple of weeks. Oh yeah, I forgot her necklace. She always wears a Mjolnir, like a Norse Thor's hammer thing. One of the things we will be doing is illustrating from a short story, a piece I'm working on. I've half written that. A polar bear with a knife, yeah. So this is up in northern Manitoba. And when Noah was about 12 or 13 or something, so like 30 years ago, 35 years ago. But it's to do with this short story I wrote that's kind of spoofing, rock star puff pieces. And one of them that I found really kind of annoyingly egregious is a piece about Bono that was in the Atlantic right around the time his autobiography came out. And just the tone of it is, so kind of breathless and, it was just the tone was so annoying, and it reminded me of like I remember when I was a kid. I think I still have it somewhere, but like Rolling Stone doing a puff piece on Axl Rose, and like anyways, just whenever they try and do like um, important journalism, but they're writing about idiot rock stars, it's kind of goofy and annoying. So I decided I was going to do this parody of the Atlantic piece on Bono, but it was going to be about Noah, because Noah, I mean, his daytime job is being a stay-at-home dad, but he sings in bands as his like actual income. So he has a wedding band, he has a regular cover band, he sings in a couple tribute bands like a Bon Jovi band, a Creed tribute band, and he sings in a U2 tribute band. So um anyways, I decided to do it as if the local news was doing the similarly toned thing about Noah. So, and the Atlantic piece starts with like Bono's granddad died when he was 14, which is, sad and whatnot. And then his mom collapsed at the funeral, and she had actually had a brain aneurysm. So she was dead like a couple days later, which is horrible, obviously. But there's just something kind of weird in the way that it's been, kind of made into this like epic, mythic origin story kind of thing. I don't know. Celebrity writing's always screwy. Of course, when I'm talking about that specific thing, I kind of always feel like I sound like an asshole. But yeah, so anyways, I decided the version of it because, of course, in the Noah thing, you want it to be goofy, right? So I had it that the granddad had been mauled by a polar bear, but then the polar bear came by the funeral, and Hrefna here like took out like a Crocodile Dundee sized knife and like avenged her father and killed the polar bear and all this. Or it sounds it doesn't. I swear it's funnier than I'm describing it right now. Um, but anyways, it's kind of a weird little story, but the polar bear thing is part of it. I got to go through and make a list of illustrations and whatnot. Depending how fast I go on these today, guess I probably better do that this weekend. Although we're definitely going to have one more stream for sure with the cast portraits. So I was trying to see. So we've got this gator climbing the fence, which they will actually climb fences. I've seen loads of photos of gators and video clips of gators in Florida climbing. Chain link fences, of course, are easier, but I've seen them pictures of them climbing like wood fences as well. So here she is. Obviously, if she stared down a polar bear and killed and dispatched it herself as a relatively young mother, then of course she's not afraid of gators. I mean, like, gators will kill you. They'll eat, somebody drowns, they'll definitely eat bodies and stuff like that. Like, that stuff has absolutely happened. But you have plenty of videos of like cyclists going by, and there's just like rows of gators by the side of the path, just basking in the sun, sleeping, and they don't mess with anyone, right? So, I have this thing. And it's also kind of a bit of a joke about. I have often made the comment that someday I would love to live in Florida. And up here in Canada, you get people who, not too, they're not impressed with that. And I've had people say, "Oh, Florida is terrible. It's and all this." And I always just play dumb. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know there's gators, but if you put a fence around your pool, I think you're fine." And then usually people don't know what to say to that, so they just shut up. So there's a little bit of that as well, where I have, for example, Hrefna will guilt trip Noah about how come he hasn't come to visit and brought the kids to Florida, and he'll always say, like, Florida's too dangerous, and she'll be like, oh, nonsense, boy, Florida, there's nothing dangerous about Florida. He's like, how many gators are in your pool right now? And then she'll dodge the question, and then finally you hear something like, oh, right now, well, 16, but, what are you talking about? It's not dangerous. So we will put some texture into these boards so they look a little more weathered, and, you want to have some places for the gator claws to get into. Make it easier for them to climb the fence. I'm thinking somewhere on the other side here, there's like a canal. I see that. I don't think it's in every, well, obviously it's not in every Florida city, but I know there's some where they have like canals in between rows of houses and stuff like that. So maybe we'll just give this little hint that if you look closely, it sure looks like there's more gators on the other side here. But it kind of blends into the water as well. Just a thirsty boy. Yep. Hey, Hrefna likes gators. Even if she doesn't poach them and therefore make money off of them. Anywhere where you have gators, that's definitely a place that's warm, which means that she kind of sees them as a portent of tropical warmth. Remember, most gators are kind of dark colored, so let's give this guy a little bit of coloring. Of course, the other thing she'd be dealing with in Florida would probably be iguanas eating flowers in her garden and all that sort of stuff. I have heard that when it gets cold in Florida, the weather stations will give like iguana warnings that you could have iguanas kind of, when they get cold, they kind of go into like a torpor and then they can fall out of the trees. And I mean, I had an iguana for 15 years, for 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. 15 is because she weighed at least 15 pounds. So, by the time she was an adult, actually, I think eventually she weighed closer to 20. She's a big lizard. And, definitely see if you had a 15-pound lizard fall asleep in the tree, it gets cold, they kind of go into like a semi-hibernation state, and then they're no longer gripping onto the trees, and therefore they fall out of them. If that conks you on the head, you're gonna sustain some damage. So I think they're actually in Florida. they're trying to cull the iguanas because they're an invasive species there. And I mean, part of me, because I had an iguana and all that, I'm like, oh, I get it though. I understand why they have to do that. It's just sad, but I get it. My character Zamo, who is an iguana, of course, would consider it a hate crime. But kind of trying to do some squiggles because I don't want to like bother actually drawing in like scales and whatnot on this guy, but you want to give the sense that he's not solid, you know, that he's got some shininess on him and some texture to his skin. So it's funny, the way that gators walk is the exact same way that iguanas walk. You know, it's that kind of foot goes together, foot go, you know, where they're kind of waddling. Every time I see like pictures of gators or crocodiles strutting around, I'm like, I know that walk. The little lizards do it too. And even the posture here about climbing. I mean, I have a watercolor painting. I'm not going to go get it right now, but that I did in high school, which was my iguana when she was a hatchling. So when her body was where she could rest her chin on there on my thing and have her hind legs kind of holding onto my finger and her tail would wrap around. So when she was very little and probably weighed like 20, well, probably 30, 40 grams. So very, very tiny. She decided one day she was going to climb up. We had those, you know, the 80s style home stereo with like the speakers that were, you know, 4 feet tall, even though really there was like one 8-inch speaker, you know, and one little or one 8-inch woofer and then the little speaker, but then it was all covered in like a black, black kind of fuzzy material. Um, and anyway, I have this photo where I got it, and she's just as she's about to swing that leg up to the top of the speaker. And I did a little watercolor painting of it. So that's the exact way that the big lizards, like the big crocodiles and alligators, climb fences the exact same way. All right. We will use the crow quill to put in some grass texture in the back. I'm going to tilt it so I can kind of get a slightly better angle here without smudging anything. Because Hrefna herself is kind of dry now, so can kind of give some like spiky plants like quarter lines and whatnot. This guy just has a big lawn. Ooh, I'll assume that all of these palm trees belong to that same neighbor, or there's a subdivision back there where they're all kind of done. Yeah, a little bit of grass. Draw one of these guys, one of his buddies, taking a nap over here. So I'm going to need the other pen for that. Not show very well, but when you have a lizard, and I've seen footage and whatnot that it also applies to crocodilians. When they're kind of napping, they'll put their hands like this, and then they'll kind of like that. When they really want to go to sleep, hand go down along the body, and the legs go down along the tail. So when it's really sleep time. So this one's really asleep. That one's just kind of dozing. Now I feel like I need to give Adam more of a background in the gym or whatever. I'm not going to do that today, though. I might at a later date. We have conflicting lines of perspective, but that's fine. Why do the gators tolerate this crazy old woman with her broom? Well, she probably feeds them. Kind of like here. Well, I mean, here where I live, we have mountain lions. Actually, if you go on other parts of the island, there's wolf packs too. But mountain lion is kind of the biggest solo predator around here. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone deliberately feeding the mountain lions, but what they do all the frickin' time is people will feed the deer. The deer are overgrown, like overpopulated, and I mean the mountain lions eat the deer, no two ways about it. But you feed the deer, so you get more deer. When you get more deer, you get more mountain lions. So it's kind of like a chain. Wolves are your favorite animals. Yeah, they're great from a distance. The only time I've ever seen a wolf was not in the wild. It was like when I was a kid in the 80s. Sometimes you'd get they'd almost be like circuses or whatnot, but like definitely if the circus came to town, they would like set up huge cages in like the atrium of the mall, and you could like have, and there'd be like a tiger in there and like tiger cubs, and you could pay to have your photo taken with tiger cubs. My mother would never pay for that. So I don't have any of those photos. But I do remember another one time where they had timber wolves. Similarly, you could definitely not. They were not allowing anyone to cuddle with the timber wolves, unlike the tiger cubs. So I've seen them that way, but I've not seen them in person. I do know a friend of mine. Like there's a town, I guess it's about half hour, 40 minutes up the highway from me called Lake Cowichan. And it's on Cowichan Lake. Don't ask me why the one is called Lake Cowichan and the other is called Cowichan Lake and why it's backwards. I don't know. Somebody made that decision 100 years ago or something. But anyways, my friend used to live there when her kids were small. There's like an elementary school and whatnot in the town, and a lot of kids would, there's like train tracks or whatnot that people would kind of take a shortcut to get home after school instead of walking through town, depending where you lived. So, but there was a wolf pack up there, and there's a freaking big one. I think it may have finally split into two, with some of them heading out to right to the Pacific coast, which isn't that far from, from that point, and then the other one staying in there. But there would be days where the kids would not be allowed to leave school because somebody had spotted either the whole pack or like I think sometimes they send like a scout that'll kind of see, and they were like hiding out in the area where the kids would take shortcuts. So then the school wouldn't let the kids go until their parents came and like picked them up at the door of the school and took them like walked them to the car to take them home. And that meant that sometimes if parents weren't able to pick the kid up till after work, there'd be some kids who would be there until like 6 p.m. at school, but they just couldn't take that risk of letting them wander. So that was just kind of story I remember hearing. I have seen I have seen mountain lion in person when my dad and I first moved over here. His house is it's on the edge of a village, and like his neighbor's property is 100% forest. Like 10 acres of forest, and then he's like a 10-minute walk from a park that backs onto municipal forest. So it's kind of in the wilderness. Anyways, one of the first nights we were here dropping off stuff for like a week, and then we're going back to Vancouver to get another truckload and whatnot. But like the night before we were going to head back, we're sitting in the rec room downstairs, and Dad suddenly said, "Is that an effing mountain lion?" And you look over, and we can see these like two glowing eyes, and like it's like a sliding glass door. So obviously the door was closed, and we just went and stood in it and looked out into the darkness at these eyes, and you could tell it was glaring at us. We were trying to figure out whether it was like a mountain lion or a lynx or a bobcat. Well, there's no bobcats or lynx here on the island. So it was definitely a mountain lion. And he went out the next day, and there was like, I think what they do with their hind legs is they I guess it's kind of like if you see like a house cat doing the making biscuits thing, they do something a little bit similar, but with their hind feet, right? And the hind feet are big. So we found the spot where we figured it had been sitting, and there were two scratched out depressions, each the size of my hand, and I got big hands for a woman. So it had obviously been sitting there and like scratching back, and it's how they do scent marking that way. So that was one thing. The other thing I'm going to see, because I'm broadcasting from OBS, so I think I can add add a scene here and pop this photo onto the screen for you guys. And what I need to do is go image capture image. Sorry, it's gonna take a moment. I gotta browse for it. But I'm pretty sure I still have it on my. It's one of the weird things I just keep on my hard drive all the time. So if I scroll back enough, I will find it. But anyways, this one day, yeah, found it. Or no, that's not it. This one day I was going in for a walk in the park close to my dad's house. That's close to the municipal forest. So, and anyways, I go down and it was like a Wednesday afternoon in October. So I'd only been in the park before when people were like walking their dogs. So, it's okay. Okay, never mind. This one's a bit of a weird crop. But anyways, I go down and there's a beach. I collect some shells. I come back up, and I had hiking poles because the trail is steep, and you know, I was definitely, I'm out of shape now, but I was really out of shape at that time. So I go up, and when I come back, like, you know, when you get the feeling of like something's watching you, but I'm just like, oh, that's weird. I'm going down to the beach. Go down there, come back up, and this is what I saw. I don't know how big that is. But those scratches are each about as wide as an iPhone. And it went right across the path. The path is about 4 feet wide. So anyways, like I stopped. I was like, oh, those look like I guess I had my phone in my hand because I'd been taking photos down at the beach. Maybe that's why. But I like stopped to take a few photos. I'm like looking around. Let's switch back. But I'm like looking around and like just have this eerie thing. I was so glad I did stop. It probably only took a minute to go snap, snap, snap and take those photos. Stick the phone in my bra. And then because I had the hiking poles, I like stuck them up under my armpit. So I had a big X over my back aimed up. And I'm like walking like this going, rah, 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 you know, like up trying to make myself big and scary. Like, because also it's like it's a pretty desolate spot. You know, it's like close to a village, but until somebody came to walk Fido, you know, in 3 or 4 hours, like if you got mauled, you're going to die there, right? It's just desolate enough. Anyways, by the time I got about 100 feet up the path, I didn't feel that kind of, oh crap anymore. Yeah, actually see if I can find a better photo. But yeah, that was the second run-in I had with a mountain lion. They do say here that if a mountain lion lets you know that they're there, if you see it or you see signs of it or whatnot, it's because it wants you to know. And I know those scratches were not there when I went down. So it did that. I was only down at the beach for about maybe 15, 20 minutes. So he definitely, I think he probably had a fresh kill. Let me see. I think I've got another set of photos here. I don't know. This is probably not any better. So, only thing is trying to adjust photos in the background here. I lost my stupid turning handle. Oh no, there, I got it back. I don't know. This is probably not any better, but there's a closer thing of the scratches. But anyways, that's a whole other, you know. Yeah. So, anyways, kind of apropos of nothing, but just sort of, these are the kind of predators that we have to consider where I live. There's also black bears, although black bears can definitely mess you up. Like I would not want to run into one. They come and they clean off the fruit trees at my dad's place if he hasn't picked things fast enough. That's for sure. But but also the bears kind of more interesting garbage, I think. I mean, whereas the wolves have been known to hunt down. And I suspect the odd time, like you hear about, like somebody goes for a hike and is never seen again. It's like, well, it may be that, they, what would the euphemism terms, the terms of service themselves. Some people say that. But depending on where they were, they also could have gotten eaten, you know. Um, that would be my guess with some of the missing persons cases that have happened on this island. Um, so, anyways, it's kind of a morbid little side note, but I'm just going to switch it to document camera because I got to take a quick drink of water here. And nobody needs to see me do that. But yeah, I know I've talked a couple times with friends and whatnot. It's like, oh, when I was in Vancouver, for like maybe not the last 6 months, but prior to 6 months before I left, for like 5 or 6 years, I had a jam space, like a rehearsal studio. I was doing music stuff at the time. It was at Main and Second, Main and Quebec, or Second in between Quebec and Main Street. So, for anyone who's heard of Vancouver's downtown east side, it's about a 20-minute walk from there. Not the greatest part of town. Um, but I used to go for a jog at like 10 p.m. Um, when I was at the jam space and never thought, usually never thought twice about it or anything. And then now it's like, when I live here, it's like, I am not going out for a walk in the dark. There's actually been reports of mountain lions wandering even in my town, Um, one presumes they're probably eating people's cats and dogs, you know. And there's like rabbits around here. Of course, there's the deer and all that. So there's food for them around, but I don't particularly feel like taking any risks of walking around after dark. Because I have definitely heard of, people seeing them in like the parking lot of apartment buildings that are like 3 blocks from my house. And I was like, yeah, we're not going to do any of that. I do know that they do have like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of like whale watching and that kind of ecotourism, but it would be kind of interesting. I have also heard of tours where they'll take you in boats into like remote little inlets and fjord type places and whatnot, where you can see like bears on the beach, or apparently sometimes you do see wolves and whatnot. If the guides kind of know where the wolves are, that they'll kind of like take tourists into those areas. Um, I assume a lot of that involves camping, which I'm not much of a camper, but it's funny. One time I'd been over in Vancouver for the day. I'm like coming back, and happened to be sitting on the ferry next to this, actually he was Danish, Danish fellow who had come on. This was like his dream vacation to come to Canada and see some of the wildlife. So he was going to be going. He had booked on some whale watching expeditions, but also he was going to be doing one of these tours of trying to see the bears and whatnot. And it was funny. He wanted to see them, but of course that's going to be from a boat or whatnot where they can't actually get to you. So, and most on the island, I think it's pretty much all black bears. Like we don't have grizzlies here. If as far as I know, I like even on the north of Vancouver Island, I don't think there's grizzly bears. But anyways, I was telling him about my mountain lion story, and he was like all freaked out. It's like, oh, like person, it's like we don't have those in Europe. I'm like, well, you used to, but our mutual ancestors killed them all. You're starting to bring them back, but. Although, yeah, I don't know that they ever had I don't think they ever had mountain lions over there. They had, I mean, at one point they had lions, but that's, around the time of the last ice age type of stuff. I mean, definitely, in terms of like Hrefna, getting back to the art, um, she's got the gators. I guess people there kind of become nonchalant about the gators. Just like we're kind of, in terms of bears, there's like a note about, hey, don't put your freaking garbage out the night before garbage day. Like, put it out in the morning, right before 8 a.m. If you live in certain parts of the valley, then you can get a bear-resistant garbage container. If you live in town, then, well, it's just one that the lid flops open. So there's that kind of thing. And then as far as the mountain lions go, it's kind of like, well, probably don't put Fido out in the middle of the night to pee. You go for a walk with him so you can both get mauled. It's like what was I watching a couple weeks ago? It's actually this British guy. His channel's all about like I think his company originally was about like pressure washing and whatnot, but they do like garden cleanups for people, and they do a lot of like volunteer stuff, like where there's like paths that the local government hasn't been keeping up. They'll go and weed whack, and they film a video, and they make YouTube monetization off of it. But he had this one where he went to Houston, and he did a collaboration with a Houston channel that does like cleaning up of rundown houses in certain neighborhoods and whatnot. And they're like cleaning up, and this guy's seeing him picking up this little baby snake, going, "Oh, what kind of baby snake is it?" And the guy from Houston's like, "That's a rattlesnake. Put that down." Guy wasn't worried about it. He's like, "Oh, I used to watch Steve Irwin. Oh, I used to watch Steve. I'm not good at accents, so I'm not going to try." He's like, "I used to watch Steve Irwin all the time when I was a kid." And it's like, yeah, you're not Steve Irwin, and that's a rattlesnake. It's a baby one, but still. Anyway, so we've got our texturing in the back thing. And at this point, I mean, by the time I finish the lawn, I think we're probably going to call it done. So for a little while, I thought, oh, maybe I'll get 4 done tonight. Nah. And I think I'm going to switch to the glass pen because that crow quill has kind of had it for today. Had enough of my shit. So we know the drill with the grass. Tons and tons of these little. I will come and put some thicker lines and whatnot after. Kind of random commentary when I'm drawing. It's like I'm drawing gators, but putting in like fence wood grain, and then I'm talking about mountain lions. And random Danish tourists that I met who are here to see bears. It's all just kind of, you get used to things. I mean, I know myself. I grew up in a suburb called Richmond, which is a suburb of Vancouver. I do find more and more I kind of feel homesick for Richmond, but the real estate is obscenely expensive. So would I ever actually be able to get to go back there? Yeah, probably not. Although who knows, maybe. If I sell lots of comic books, I suppose it's possible. But kind of strengthen up the line of these braids. But it's kind of funny, the stuff that when I lived in Richmond, I kind of took for granted. And, like, I mean, there's bears in the Vancouver area, but they're kind of on the North Shore. So you kind of really just hear about it in terms of like, oh, okay, like people who live in North Vancouver have to like lock up their garbage containers, but we don't care here, type of thing. When you move here, it's like, oh no, that's like half my friends have to be cautious with their garbage containers. My brother, when he was living here for a little while, he saw, I think 2 or 3 times, he saw a black bear when he was out hiking, and I had my couple of run-ins with mountain lions. I think actually the time when that one was sitting in my dad's back yard glaring at us, I think what it was is it probably noted that the smell was different, because their smell is so much better than ours. Probably noticed like, oh, I smell new humans, and kind of wanting to make it known that we were in his turf. That's my guess. There is a family of mountain lions that lives on the hill. I mean, called a mountain, but compared to the BC mainland, it's a hill. There is known to be a couple families of mountain lions around there. So I think there's a couple different females that are known to have cubs pretty much every year, and then the cubs have to go find their own turf. I just realized I forgot to draw on the rest of Hrefna here. I'll probably actually make her outfit black, just so we have. Although, usually I draw her wearing like hot pink, so... One thing I find, I've talked about this before with the glass pens, is sometimes you got to turn them and find what side they want to write on. And sometimes the answer is they don't want to write on any side. Coming to that point of the night where the pens, I guess, think that their job duties are over. I think I'll just draw Hrefna's bottoms as being black and leave the top as pink. Well, yeah. Even though I normally draw her in hot pink, I think kind of the contrast is good, so Draw the fringe top here. So there, that gives a little bit of more contrast, and try and kind of keep up. Kind of bothered by this. I'm gonna make her broom a little darker as well, so it stands out from the fence. There. All right, so that's the basics. Now we will bring out the medium-sized pen and do a little bit of shadow and thickening of lines and stuff. First of all, of course, we want to put a fatter line underneath there. All right, I think we're going to call that one done. And, you know, we're getting kind of to the end of my usual 2-hour block. So I'm going to, first of all, while I'm fetching out my other drawing, I'll just quickly throw that in there. I don't have a Noah subscribe yet. I really need to make one. But anyways, now we'll go back. And I'm actually going to go to document camera only. And there we go. So that is, I'm just going to flip there. So we've got Agnes, that is Noah's mother-in-law, and she's watching Noah over here. Let me see if I can bring this way down. You can kind of see Noah there riding a unicycle and practicing his juggling. As much to give his mother-in-law something to stare at and be annoyed by as anything else. Although, I mean, he used to be a busker, so he's probably wanting to keep up on his skills and whatnot, but that's beside the point here. And then there's his father-in-law, Frank, reading the newspaper, being glad that Agnes is busy spying on Noah and not making a pest of herself to Frank and demanding that he do stuff or not do stuff, depending. And then we had Hrefna, Noah's mother. And along the way, I talked a little bit about what the project will be illustrating once I finish these cast portraits. Also, I just see that we've got a bit of ink goobering. I'll try and blot up. Yeah, it's already kind of semi-dry, but whatever. One of the gators that lives on her property climbing the fence while she waves her broom at it. Anyways, and of course I talked a little bit about mountain lions. We talked about wolves, polar bears, all sorts of crazy critters. So that is gonna do it for tonight. So I'm going to flip over to there. Boom. So thank you for watching. And there we see Noah and Ursula along with the rats. And, well, Miles is only half rat. He's half mouse. So what we're doing for the rest of the week, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Tomorrow I will be carrying on with The World According to Zamo. Try and get 3, maybe even 4, but probably just 3 drawings done for that. And Thursday we've got some Noah coloring book pages. We're getting down to the wire. I think I've only got like 3 or 4 of his jobs left in this book, and then we'll also do some illustrations for the book that aren't specifically his jobs. And then Friday, we are carrying on with Ricky B Goes to Sea, inking that project. And then Saturday, we will have my weekly recap. I probably won't show you stuff that I did off camera because I'm kind of I'm doing a lot of scanning this week, so there's nothing to show for that. And also, I'm going to be doing some inking of the back part of Ricky B Goes to Sea, you know, the spoiler part at the end. So we won't show that. But anyways, we got streams for a few more nights, and then, of course, take Sunday off. So what I'm going to leave you guys with tonight is a link to my Zomo, or did I say Zomo? Noah, to the Noah's Archipelago playlist, so you can see a whole bunch of other streams that I've done so far featuring Noah, as well as I think I've got some printmaking from a couple years ago and whatnot on there. So thank you for watching, and we will see you real soon. Bye for now.